Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Gained Ashura's Memories, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto knew that going back to the academy would be hard for his brother, so he understood why the Uchiha wasn't looking forward to it. Sasuke had practically moved into his tiny apartment, refusing to go back to the compound. Not that Naruto blamed him. There were nights when Sasuke would wake screaming, his nightmares a mix of present and the past life. So, he had not said anything, when a week after that dreaded hospital visit, Sasuke just randomly walked into his small home with 2 bags. One for his clothes and such, the other for various shinobi tools, which they needed for practice. The remaining week, which the Hokage had allowed both of them to miss out, with the Anbu dropping off a few books they needed to read, the two of them set to rearranging and patching up the tiny place the best they could. It was not comfortable, but it was better than staying at the deserted compound or spending the nights in the wild. However, if there was something for which they kept returning, it was the Uchiha's library. The place was filled to the brim with various things, some of which the Uchiha never used more than the basics. One such thing was Fuinjutsu. Indra despised Fuinjutsu, and not so surprisingly, it was one of the weakest skills of Uchihas in general. Naruto, on the other hand, benefited from it. Of course, they had their memories, but Fuinjutsu was a versatile, ever-changing art, so he needed to catch up. Besides, despite both of them having the theoretical knowledge of their previous lives' jutsu, it didn't mean they could use them. Their bodies were not the bodies of grown men, after all, and neither their reserves, nor their chakra control were up to par. So for a few more years, there wouldn't be valley-craving fights, like it had happened in their prime. Of course, this time they wouldn't try maim each other, but an all-out fight to keep in shape, even for training, would be able to crave a valley, if they ever managed to get their skills and power to the old levels. What they didn't expect on their return to the academy was the horde of girls screaming, "Sasuke-kun." They didn't know, but it was also the day when the fan club of Uchiha Sasuke was formed. Much to the displeasure of said Uchiha. 2 years later, Naruto was on the 4th chapter of his book, when he first sensed them approaching. It was a very enjoyable book about Fuinjutsu, which Inu-san had given him, after the Anbu caught him reading some Uchiha scrolls about the art. It was a well-written, enjoyable read, penned by the Yondaime Hokage. The man was a genius for sure. Naruto stole a glance at his brother, who chose a window seat, thus he only had one available space next to him, which Naruto himself occupied. It was Sasuke's new plan to avoid being near the annoyingly loud girls. The blonde wondered if it would work. He considered telling Sasuke that his fan club was coming, but he decided against it. Let the Uchiha meditate, as long as possible. It would help him survive the day. Having a fan club, after all, was an entirely new experience for Sasuke. The first time around he'd been the loner, the untouchable Otsutsuki prodigy. Someone whom their father's followers admired, yet dared rarely to approach. Especially after Indra had sent that poor soul running, after he'd been made fun of. That was the day when Ashura realized his brother cared for him, even if he was awkward at showing it. The girls poured in, and when they spotted Sasuke, they immediately hurried over. "Move, Naruto, I want to sit next to Sasuke-kun." The blonde girl, Yamanaka Ino, said. "No, I'm sitting next to him," Sakura said, her green eyes narrowing on Ino, before she glared at him. Naruto didn't even twitch. "Sorry, Sakura-san, Ino-san. It's my seat now," he gestured at the mostly empty classroom. It was pretty early after all. "Find another seat, please." "Move, Naruto Barker," Sakura growled, as she moved to push him. For some reason, she thought she could bully him into doing what she wanted, only because her written scores were better than his. She seemed to forget that her physical and survival scores were one of the lowest, while his were among the best. Sasuke had better scores on marksmanship, while his scores were better in survival. Their sparring scores were even, and the last 2 times they had surprising even the teachers. However, as she pushed him, Sasuke rose and caught her hand, surprising many in class. He wasn't one to get involved in his and the girls' fights over the seat. In fact, he had never touched anyone, other than Naruto, outside Ashura. Leave, Sasuke said in a quiet tone. Both girls drew up short, blinking at him. Sasuke-kun, Sakura whispered. Sasuke glared, his Sharingan flashing, which caused both girls to stagger back. As Sakura staggered, Sasuke let her go. Leave us know, and if you ever try to bully Naruto again, you will regret it. The two girls shuffled away, throwing shocked and wary glances at Sasuke, as they took their seats. The few others who were in class, watched in quiet shock. The boys glared at their respective trees. They managed to ditch the academy by Sasuke feigning sickness and Naruto, playing the worried friend, brother card, remained Tauach over him. However, Sasuke wasn't sick. In fact, he could hardly be any healthier. But after the two of them realized that the academy was not going by their standards, they decided to take things into their own hands. But then again, it would be hard to live up to their standards, when they were the first of the three most famous clans of the shinobi world, whose father was called Agad on Earth. So, they decided to train themselves. They did, after all, know all the theory behind things. Chakra control, elemental manipulation and so on. Heck, it had been Indra, who had invented ninjutsu, although at the time it wasn't meant for K. Stupid reincarnation. Sasuke growled. All my skills are gone. At least you can walk on that goddamn tree. Naruto spat back. If I lay out too much chakra, you get blown down and the bark cracks from my chakra. He growled, pointing at the two trees, which his dense, uncontrolled chakra had already ruined. Sasuke hummed, his eyes darting across the line of ruined trees. We're not going home, useless we get somewhere, with this stupid exercise. Agreed, Nisama. They shared a look before getting a running start to try and stick to the tree barks. The next day, Genin Team 4, led by Shiranui Genma, would arrive in the usual training ground to a shocking scene. Several trees' barks damaged, 2 trees even uprooted, and the ground having cracks and craters, while there were also branches and burned leaves. In short, the whole place had been totally destroyed. Sasuke's eyes narrowed when he saw Naruto's test sheet. He growled lowly, ready to report to Iruka that Mizuki had intentionally sabotaged Naruto. The scarred Chunin was among the kinder teachers, so to say. He didn't hinder or sabotage Naruto. He just simply ignored the Uzumaki. Don't, Naruto hissed. Not here, not to him. Sasuke scowled. Oh Toto. That's sabotage. It's unfair and completely unethical of a shinobi. Well, in these circumstances, it is unethical. You should teach the next generation well, because they carry your teachings and legacy and... Enough, Oni-sama. Naruto growled lowly, surprising the Uchiha with the suddenly sharp tone. Let it be, as it is. You are the top of the class and I am the one with the lowest scores. The best and the last get placed on the same team, if my assumptions and calculations are correct. We need to be on the same team, or we'll both go mad from the stupidity and ignorance of the village. Sasuke grunted, unhappy that his brother had to play the complete idiot. True, he learned harder than Sasuke himself and tried different methods, or sometime, he just needed a bit more time, but Naruto was not an idiot. In fact, Sasuke would consider the blonde a genius in some fields, that Sasuke himself had some trouble with. Plus, Naruto had the uncanny ability to come up with plans oath-fly, which amazed Sasuke. He huffed and nodded. Very well, I will let it be, as you wish. Unknown to them, a certain Nara overheard their exchange and he would ponder several things in the future, like, why Naruto was intentionally sabotaged or why did the two speak so carefully, formally even, when around each other. Although, from then on, Shikamaru would pay more attention to the strange duo and he would notice that there would be times when their speech pattern and vocabulary would drastically change, only to be back to normal, more modern speech the next minute. Naruto sat in a meditative position trying to get a feel of his chakra. The past week he'd been trying to get a hang of shape manipulation. It was one of the things he had been good at, but right now, came to him hard. It was strange, being good at one thing once and the next time, being unable to do even the first step of it. Gah! He groaned in annoyance, throwing himself onto the grass. This just doesn't work. They were in Asmal clearing, not far from his apartment. After that one time years ago, when they destroyed the training ground, they agreed to train in more remote places, so there wouldn't be questions from the higher-ups. Sasuke opened his eyes and allowed the Sharingan to deactivate. Whenever he let his chakra free, while meditating, his eyes would activate. What doesn't work, Ototo? Naruto groaned and looked at him. Shape manipulation. It's the main thing you need, to form the Kongo Fuser, adamantine sealing chains. From what I gathered from Karsan's clan scroll, it would work like that. Shape manipulation and a seal on the user's body, which would stay till death. I drew the seal and no, Nisama, I didn't mess it up, he glared pointedly, as the Uchiha opened his mouth to ask, but it still doesn't work. It can't seem to regulate my chakra enough. Which is strange, because this thing needs much less chakra control than medical jutsu, for example. Sasuke hummed, thoughtful for a moment. His eyes were trailing his body and the blonde knew his brother was studying his pathways. It would surely be better if we had Abyakugan user right now, but I think it might have to do something with Kurama's seal. You did see it was leaking his chakra into your body, no? Naruto groaned. I almost forgot about that. So, I either shut off his chakra, or we try doing something with that godforsaken seal. Sasuke shrugged. Whichever you want. For a moment, Naruto sat thoughtfully. On one hand, simply shutting off the chakra would be easier, but perhaps having a look at the seal wouldn't hurt either. Kurama had calmed down in the past few years, so the fox was at least willing to be civil. Oh, they weren't chatting on daily basis, but he hadn't tried bisecting Naruto the last time he visited, either. Let's visit him. Throw me in and come with me, he said. Sasuke deadpanned. The last time I entered your min space, he tried clawing my eyes out. Naruto nodded. True, but he can't hold grudges forever. Besides, from what I've seen, Oto-san bargained with the Shinigami to seal him. So if Kurama gets discorporated too. Sasuke snorted, amusement flashing in his eyes. Your father definitely knew his art. Naruto hummed. They did call him one of the finest shinobi of his time and he was a recognized seal expert. Not many go on tampering with space-time jutsu. Sasuke huffed. True. So, ready. Naruto groaned. Bring it on, he said, wrapping his chakra around Sasuke and looking into his eyes, letting the genjutsu wash over him. For a moment, both of them were falling and then, they arrived. There was a major improvement to the surroundings this time. In the early days, when Kurama hadn't even been willing to acknowledge that the Membereden were trying to come up with a way to fix things, the place was a dark sewer. Now, it was a massive forest with a great pond. The golden bars still stood unmoved, but there was light everywhere, almost giving a feeling of freedom. Of course, both Naruto and Sasuke knew that it wasn't, but it was the closest the blonde could bring freedom for their fox brother. Kurama ni Sama. The two greeted, as they stopped in front of the great bars. The Biju's burning red eyes opened. He was still displeased with his situation, but he no longer had so much hate in him, as the first time, when Naruto had come before him, after remembering. His chakra still didn't have Anis feel, but it was no longer suffocatingly dark, either. Plus, since Naruto re-manifested Mokuton, he had Kurama's negative emotion detection at his disposal, as another sense. Ashura, Indra, the fox huffed. Since they had made it up, the fox actually bothered to use the names, instead of simply saying, Gaki, in the blonde's case, or, traitor, in the Uchiha's. What brings you here? We hoped you might have an idea what seal was used here. With your chakra leaking in with mine, it can't hope to form Kongo Fuser. Their brother growled, anger flashing in his predatory gaze. And what you hope to do with Tataku's technique, Ashura? The blonde rolled his eyes. I'm no longer Otsutsuki, am I? Got to keep clan traditions. Besides, that jutsu's very useful. Fine. He growled. But don't Yudorito use it against me. Naruto matched the searing gaze unwaveringly. Do not force me to use them against you. Respect me, as I respect you, and this will be easier for both of us. Perhaps, in time, we may even find a solution for you and your siblings to be free again. Very well. Naruto smiled. Thank you, Naruto. Sasuke called, pointing at the massive gates. That Fuda is a barrier. Keeps Kurama from sensing Trophy. If we get it off, he'll at least sense the outside world and perhaps, you can have a proper look at the seal and solve your problem. Naruto studied it for a second and nodded. Let's see, then. He jumped up, reaching to peel it off, but suddenly two arms wrapped around him. Oh no, Naru-chan, you don't. A melodious female voice sung. Leave it where it is, Musuko, a deeper voice insisted. As he was pushed away from the gates, Kurama roared and Sasuke gasped. Naruto pulled away from the grip and he was ready to snap. When he realized what stood before him. One was a blonde man, with blue eyes, dressed in the standard Konoha Jonin uniform, with a white haori over it. The second was a beautiful red-haired woman with violet eyes, dressed in white, short-sleeved blouse and a green dress, with shinobi sandals. Naruto, Sasuke said, eyes narrowed. I can see, Sasuke, he said, studying the chakra imprints of his parents curiously. His father was really a genius, he had to admit. And who you might be? Asked the Yondaime, studying Sasuke. Sasuke nodded in greeting. Uchiha Sasuke. Oh, Mikoto-chan's boy. Kushina said with agron. Look Minato, my godson's grown just as well, as our son. And they're even friends. Godson. The boys echoed in shock. Kushina nodded, her grin widening. Mikoto was my best friend and ex-teammate, so before you were born, she asked me to be your godmother. She took a step closer and gently ruffled Sasuke's hair, surprising the Uchiha. Ha! Naruto murmured. The world's full of surprises. Tell me about it, Ototo. Sasuke agreed, stealing a glance at the blonde. The Uzumaki Namika's pair raised their eyebrows at the form of a dress, but didn't question it. What did you want with the seal, Musuko? Minato asked. The fox is dangerous. He's just pissed at us, the boys said at once. Kushina opened her mouth to ask something, but Sasuke raised a hand, silencing her. Then, Naruto spoke again. It's a long story. Involves a feud and reincarnation, more raised eyebrows, but I have a problem with the seal. Because the furball's chakra leaks into my system, it can form the Uzumaki chains. Kushina gasped. You already have the scroll. Sarutobi-sama gave it to you. Naruto snorted. No. Sasuke mentioned you, when he found an old team picture of his mother's. And Oto-san wasn't hard to figure out, once you look at a picture. The fox also dropped a hint or two, last year. We added 2 and 2 together. The Sandaime doesn't know, that we are aware of Naruto's heritage. Or about the furball, Sasuke said. Well, in that case, Minato sighed, remove the barrier seal. But please be care. I have Mokuton. Naruto stated. It will keep the seal stable. In the worst of cases, I can subdue the furball with the chain Sanmakuton. Their eyes went wide. How? His mother asked in shock. Only Shodaime-sama. Reincarnation. Sasuke repeated again. And the Senju and Uzumaki share the same ancestors. In fact, they are also distantly related to the Uchihas, but that was a relation everyone was content forgetting about. Minato sighed. I wish we had more time. You made me curious. But the chakra will run out soon. Grow strong, both of you. His eyes settled on Naruto, and don't forget, Naruto. We love you, no matter what. Naruto blinked, as his father hugged him. Soon, a sobbing redhead also joined them. We love you. Forever. And I love you too, the Mokuton user murmured. Kushina reached out and dragged Sasuke into the hug, shocking the Uchiha yet again. The Yondaime grinned at his surprised look. You're a part of the family, too, Sasuke. Thank you for being there for him, when we can't. Sasuke stole a glance at his brother. He was there for me, when no one else was. He believed in me, when others didn't. It's the least thing I owe him, he said, bumping Naruto in the shoulder. They remained like that, hugging and holding one another, until the last traces of the chakra imprints faded. If Naruto had a few tears running down his face, when they returned to the real world, Sasuke pretended not to see anything and instead, just wordlessly hugged the blonde. The waiting was the worst part, Naruto decided. They were already done with 2/3 of the graduation exam, the written portion and the weapon examination. Although Naruto wished there hadn't been a written part, he was still in one piece. His written scores were surely just the minimal needed for passing. But, at least he had 9 out of 10 points on weaponry. With those done, their class was waiting for the third part, which would determine if they graduate or not. The ninjutsu portion, which required them to perform henge, kawarimi and ubunshin. I hate that my name starts with Anu. Sasuke murmured next to him. We should just go by Otsutsuki. At least, we would be done by now. Naruto huffed. Yeah. But the thing is, that my name should start with An's. Or at the very least, An, because we really don't know which of them has that. Sasuke scoffed. Lucky bastard. Naruto rolled his eyes. It doesn't start with either, so I'm here too. Besides, if we're speaking about being lucky, you'll go sooner than me, he murmured heatedly, not wanting to draw too much attention. Sasuke hummed. By the way, don't you want to see which of them has it? I mean, you know, tell the Sandime. Just the important parts, then ask him nicely which of them was. Naruto grunted. I've been toying with the idea for a while. Yasked Kura, but he has no idea which of them. At this rate, both of them could be half B. The Uchiha rolled his eyes. Maybe. But maybe it's just one. You just don't know, woe and from whom, his sentence was see off, as the door to the room opened and Iruka poked his head out. The Chunan's gaze swept the corridor. Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke murmured an, about time, before standing up. Iruka smiled at him and waved him into the examination room. Once Sasuke was inside, the door shut behind Iruka and the remaining students were left in silence. Naruto tapped his feet softly against the floor. Of course, he knew that Sasuke would ace this part too, like the previous ones, but he couldn't help his nerves. He was anxious to see his friend out of that room with a Konoha Hitai 8. After a few minutes, which felt like 100 years to the blonde, Sasuke walked out of the room, the metal engraved with the Konoha symbol glinting in the light, on his forehead. Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka called. The blonde stood and met Sasuke. The Uchiha smirked at him and they bumped fists. Child's play. So hurry up, Ototo. I'm hungry and Aramen would be nice. Agron stretched across the whisked face. I need 5 minutes, he murmured and nodded to Iruka, as he slipped into the room. He stopped in the middle of the room, across from the desk, where Iruka and Mizuki sat. The scarred man gave him an encouraging smile. Mizuki's face was blank, but Naruto wasn't fooled. The man radiated so much hate and malice, that it almost unhinged his negative emotion sense. Sometimes, he wished he could shut it down, but Kurama would not let that. Because it annoyed Naruto and the fox's new entertainment was annoying the hell out of the blonde. Of course, Kurama thought it justified, because it had been his and Indra's past actions, which had led to the Biju being sealed. Alright Naruto, please perform Akawarimi and switch with that chair, he said, pointing at an oddly placed chair. Naruto nodded and did the task flawlessly, even switching back. Iruka looked pleased. A henge please. He did the hand signs and turned into Iruka, careful to miss a few details. Best not have full scores, otherwise that would look suspicious. Good. The instructor said, marking something on his paper. A bunchen, please. Naruto paused for a second and turned it over in his head. Iruka just said he needed a clone, not specifying what type. Catching the loophole, a shadow of Agron crossed his features. He raised his hand in a tiger sign. He felt his chakra morph into water. Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. 2 perfect water clones appeared flanking him. Iruka and Mizuki both blinked in shock. On the outside, Naruto grinned at the 2 academy teachers sheepishly. On the inside, however, he was frowning. It was a simple, C-rank technique, yet it took out much more of his reserves than expected. Note to self. Spend extra time on chakra control, he sulked inwardly. Well done, Naruto. Iruka praised him, snapped from his shock, unaware of the blonde's sulky mood. Once the 2 older men were calmer, Iruka offered him a headband. Naruto released his jutsu and the 2 clones splashed, leaving small puddles of water on the floor. Thank you, Iruka-sensei, he said with Agron, as his fingers wrapped around the metal plate. Mizuki had a fake smile on his face, but in reality he was giving off so much anger, hate and annoyance, that it almost made Naruto puke, mostly because it was directed straight at him. He practically ran from the room, eager to be away from the white-haired Chunin, lest he said or did something, which would land him in trouble. If he landed himself in trouble in the first minutes of his official genin life, Sasuke would set him on fire. He couldn't get out of the room fast enough. Naruto sauntered out of the academy, happy to have a headband of his own. Many of the adult civilians were shocked to see the headband on him. Some looked angry, others looked fearful. He heard their whispers too, but he chose to ignore it all. They just simply couldn't tell the difference between the Jinchuriki and the Biju. And it seemed that in the time since his and Indra's first death by each other's hands, people had completely misjudged the non-human siblings, calling them monsters. Monsters, who had no compassion, only be and desire for destruction. A part of him was angry, that people thought of the Biju, as heartless monsters. Another part was sad and guilty, it was after all, partly his and Indra's fault, that the world had come to be, what it was. Of course, human nature was part of it too, humans didn't seem to change, the want for power, to prove others one's superiority, but still. It was partly their fault, partly the fault of the entire human race. It was sort of disheartening. Naruto-kun. Naruto perked up at the call of his name and cursed inwardly. He'd been so preoccupied with his thoughts, that he hadn't even noticed someone coming near him. Turning to face the voice, he saw Mizuki. Now fully alert, Naruto felt the same sickening feeling, like before. It was like someone had poured honey on his back and thousands of ants were crawling trough it. It made him want to shudder. Mizuki-sensei, he asked surprised, not even having to fake it. The Chunan's face was suspiciously friendly. I've seen your points from the exam, and I was wondering, if you were open to a makeup test. For extra points, so it would get you placed on a better team later. Naruto blinked. Contrary to what the academy believed, he was not a complete idiot. Sometimes he had problems understanding some concepts, but most of the time, his current hardships came from the neglect and sabotage of the teachers. Luckily for him, he had a genius for brother and Sasuke helped him out. It wasn't that Sasuke took extra time to help fill in the blanks and correct some flaws he picked up, due to the sabotage. He helped more now, than he had before. So the point was, that Naruto wasn't as bad, as he would have been, in a different situation, without them remembering their past life. He was in the lower half of the class, yes, but he was not a dead last, as he used to be, and that was something. He wasn't an idiot either. He could see Mizuki was planning something and he wanted to use Naruto for that plan. But, I will use him to figure out his intentions instead. If he wants to harm the village, I can always stop him and he won't even know what hit him, thought the blonde. That's possible, he asked, trying to feign a mix of surprise and hope. I could get more points. Yes, Mizuki nodded. How? He asked, leaning closer. Do you think I could even be the new rookie, with those extra points? Naruto could see Mizuki was pleased, that his plan worked, but in fact, it was Naruto, who was playing him. The Uzumaki smirked inwardly. Hook, line and sinker. Pranking and con rarely paid off, if one was a shinobi. Well, you must not tell anyone about this. This makeup test is rare. The thing you'll have to do. The security of the Hokage vault was truly crappy. If Mizuki indeed spoke the truth and very important things were kept inside, then Naruto was afraid for the safety of Konoha. If a 12-year-old child could get into the supposedly most well-protected part of the building. Admittedly, he had another life's experiences, but still. That, at best, put him on the level of Anbu, in case of experiences. Anbu, whom he had avoided without even being. When he had been younger and played pranks, they'd at least noticed him. Shaking his head, he sped across the rooftops, eager to get to the meeting spot Mizuki had given. Soon, he would see the man's true colors. He just hoped his brother wouldn't be too pissed at him for getting involved in something that could very well be considered treason. Naruto knew he shouldn't have opened the scroll, but he was bored. He wanted to see what techniques had been considered forbidden. Mizuki was late and Naruto was sure that by now, the village had raised an alarm over the scroll's disappearance. His eyes stopped on a jutsu called Edo Tensei. Curiously, he read the technique and frowned in disgust. The dead should be left resting. To think someone even considered resurrection in such a manner, his violet gaze flickered to the bottom of the paragraph. It was signed with a distinct Tobarama. If Naruto recalled correctly, he had been the Nadaime. One of his kin had come up with a jutsu like this. And he'd muttered a Butendra Sunethikalati before. Oh, he'd like to take it back now. It seemed people indeed forgot a lot, with times passing. He shook his head and searched the scroll bunch and no eyes skidded trough the lines and he smiled. Now this was useful jutsu and not all that hard either. It was like other bunshin, but with some useful differences, and, by the description, it needed a bit more chakra, but chakra had never been his problem. Sensing people just entering his sensory range from two different directions, Naruto hurriedly closed the scroll and waited. Interesting. One was Mizuki, but the other who was rapidly closing in on him from the village's direction, Wasaruka of all people. The man had never been as mean as other teachers, but he hadn't showed any affections either, so having him here was a surprise. The first one to break off the foliage was Iruka. His eyes were wide and worried. Naruto, you barker. What did you think stealing from Hokage-sama? Naruto rolled his eyes inwardly. Checking out a theory about a traitor. Plus, it was Anna's lesson for the people up there. It says something about Thelite, when a 12-year-old can slip past them, no. To Iruka, he faked surprise. Iruka-sensei, are you here to mark the extra points on my exam? Iruka stopped dead in his tracks and blinked at him with wide, confused eyes. What are? Iruka's sentence was set off by Mizuki's arrival. I see you got the scroll, Naruto, the man grinned hungrily. Now, give it to me and I'll mark you the extra points tomorrow. No, Naruto, don't give it. Iruka started, only to be set off, as Naruto released a wave of K-intent, surprising both teachers. And, it was directed at Mizuki, who froze for a second. You truly did believe it was that much of an idiot. The blonde spoke coldly, his eyes glinting as sharply as steel. I will not give it to you. Know the meaning of the word forbidden. Mizuki looked shocked and then he spoke. Oh, come now, kid. I could take it from you any day of the week. But, if you give it to me, I will tell you why the village hates you so much. Do you know why they hate you? Why would even your parents abandon you? Even your whore of a mother didn't want you. Naruto raised an eyebrow, but decided to play along. He was sure the Hokage would come. Or at the very least, send a squad of Anbu, to take the scroll safely back to where it belonged under lock and key, and the Anbu would surely take the traitor away. And why do they hate me? It's because. No, Mizuki, it's forbidden to talk about. Iruka cried desperately. The other man continued anyway. 12 years ago the Kyuubi attacked the village and the Yondaime defeated it. Sealed it. And you Naruto, you are the Kyuubi. Naruto feigned shock for a second, but sadly, he hadn't considered what Mizuki would do with that second. The man grabbed a Fuma shuriken and hurled it towards him. However, before Naruto had a chance to stop it, Iruka cried out and tackled him away. There was a thud and Naruto looked up in shock. He was on the ground and Iruka crouched over him, the giant throwing star sticking out of his back. What? Mizuki called in shock. Naruto stared at the scarred man in surprise. He hadn't expected Iruka to use his very body as a shield to save him. Just like his parents had on the night of his birth. Kurama had shown him the scene once, to try riling him up. Iruka-sensei, he gasped. Iruka grunted, looking at him. Go, run Naruto. Take the scroll and run. Naruto cautiously scrambled away from the brown-haired man, as Mizuki sneered down at them. Why would you save the demon Iruka? It K your parents. Hi. Iruka nodded. The Bakujitsun K my parents. But Naruto is not a Kyuubi. He's just the container. He's a child, a shinobi of the leaf. So, I won't let you harm him. Naruto's heart clenched. He'd always thought the Iruka disliked him, but now. The man looked at him. Run, Naruto. Naruto glared at Mizuki and slowly stood up. He could feel the Hokage and the Anbu closing in. But Mizuki had made this personal with the comment about his parents, but harming Iruka was way too much. You bastard, he snarled at Mizuki. You made this thing personal, when you spoke off me parents. You signed your own death warrant, when you hurt Iruka-sensei. He felt his chakra rise to the surface and his eyes narrowed on Mizuki. He formed a half-ram for better focus. Uzumaki Hiden, Kongo Fuser. Uzumaki secret tradition. Adamantine sealing chains. Several of the thick golden chains brushed from his back and wrapped around Mizuki. Around his arms and legs. He yanked the chains and the man fell from the tree he'd been standing on. That was when the Hokage and the Anbu arrived at the edge of the clearing. Naruto knew they would see this, but who cared? He had to reveal sometime, and this was better than snooping around the Hokage tower with his brother, to find out which of his parents had Senju. He flared his chakra and formed a snake seal, which caused the trees around them to bloom. Crap, he really needed to work on his chakra control, before slamming his hand on the ground. Mokuton, Shinku ne Keimusho. Wood release, Crimson Root Prison. The ground rumbled and Mizuki tried jumping away, but Naruto yanked him back onto the ground with the chains. Several roots broke the surace and formed into a ball-like prison around the traitor. Once the roots stopped growing, Naruto smicked and detangled his chains, pulling them back. He smirked at the look on Mizuki's face and formed another few seals. Mokuton, Mahi Kafan, wood release, paralytic pollen. Bright yellow flowers bloomed on the roots and released small plumes of shimmering pollen. A few minutes later Mizuki was on the floor, unconscious. Naruto made another hand sign and the roots sank back into the earth. He huffed and turned to his sensei. Iruka-sensei. I'm fine, said the shocked teacher, ignoring the shuriken in his back. How? Naruto gave a sheepish smile, before turning to the Hokage. The aged man and his Anbu seemed as speechless as Iruka. Your defenses on the tower are ridiculous, Gigi. That comment seemed to snap the Hokage back to reality. Now, how about we get Iruka to hospital and smooth this all out? And you can tell me what happened here, Naruto-kun, he said in a hard tone. Naruto sat patiently, watching as the medics treated Iruka. The room was a bit more crowded than the two women would have liked, but Naruto refused to leave Iruka and the Hokage wanted to have his own questions. Once they were done, they turned to Naruto. Let me have a look, Uzumaki-san, the black-haired woman asked kindly. Naruto knew her, she was the Hokage's personal medic Shimizu-saya. He shook his head. I'm fine Shimizu-san, thank you. It was a bit winded from all the chakra use but, he shrugged, being a Jinchuriki helps with that. She looked surprised, that he said that, but nodded anyway and left with her colleagues soon after. Now, the Hokage started, you could, he was see off, as the door to the room opened and Avery pissed off Uchiha Sasuke marched in, his Sharingan spinning wildly. Uzumaki, he hissed. Naruto looked sheepish. Hey, Nisama. Sasuke whacked him across the head and Naruto rubbed the sore spot with a pout. Nay, Nisama, that was uncalled for. Uncalled for, Sasuke hissed. You said you'll be back in an hour and you weren't. The next thing I know that my senses go mad with your chakra all over the place. What the hell did you do, anyway? The blonde scratched his cheek. Might have unlocked Mokuton. Sasuke blinked, freezing on the spot for a second. What? You heard me right. Naruto grinned foxily. Sasuke scowled and lightly shoved Naruto again. Barker, he glared, eyes narrowed. You make me worry again and I will put a tracking seal on you. Get it? But, Sasuke growled. Try that again and I swear on Theshinju. Naruto huffed. Fine. Next time I'll tell you, if I want to catch. He sulked. Sasuke sighed, giving the blonde a sharp look. Better, he muttered, ruffling Naruto's hair. Naruto scowled at the Uchiha, but it didn't deter Sasuke. In fact, he messed up his hair even more, if that was possible. Then, as Sasuke released the blonde, he noticed Iruka too and the bandages around his torso and the traces of B on the man's discarded shirt and vest. Sensei, are you alright? Iruka nodded, throwing the two boys a fond look. Yes, Sasuke, thank you for asking. I shall be healthy in a week or so again. Sasuke nodded, pleased with the information. Then the Uchiha grabbed the blonde. Come on, Barker. Time to go home. Not so fast, boys, the Hokage spoke. He'd watched the scene with some interest after all, and Uchiha had just called an Uzumaki, and very possibly, a Senju, his brother. Of course, he'd heard it from the ANBU, but he hadn't seen the boys interact so freely before. Something's wrong, Hokage-sama. Sasuke asked, throwing a scolding look at the blonde. What did you do this time? He muttered. Well, I think we should speak about Naruto's heritage and Kondi. As the Fox's host, Sasuke asked, or that his parents are Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. Both Iruka's and the Hokage's eyes widened, alter for different reasons. Ni-sama. Naruto jabbed the Uchiha in the ribs. Couldn't you have been subtler? Sasuke shrugged. There's nothing to be subtle about. The only thing we don't know, is which of them is related to the Senju. And how do you know that? Asked the Hokage. Naruto groaned and shared a look with his brother. A silent agreement passed between them. They would tell them half-truths. They would think they'd gone mad, if they brought up the whole transmigration, reincarnation thing. The blonde scratched the back of his neck, as he looked at his surrogate grandfather. Well, you see it happened. Naruto and Sasuke walked side by side towards the Hokage's office. It had been 3 days since the incident with Mizuki. They had been summoned to meet with the leader. Well, Naruto had been summoned, but the blonde insisted Sasuke to tag along. We're here to see the Hokage, Naruto said, looking at the secretary. The woman studied them for a second before she smiled faintly. Go along, Uzumaki-kun. Hokage-sama is free and is expecting you. Thank you, Midori-san. Naruto answered with a grin of his own, as they passed her desk and stopped before the door. Naruto knocked before entering. Sasuke slipped in behind him, as if he were his shadow. As the door closed behind them, the Hokage looked up. The aged man's eyes immediately landed on him, before he looked back at Naruto. However, before he could speak, Naruto did. Nice day, Gigi. Did you want to say something? Yes, but since it concerns your family, I thought we might have a private. Sasuke stays, Naruto said, his tone final. It reminded Sasuke of their first life. That tone was like their father's. He's my brother and best friend. I'll tell him anyway, whatever you have to say. Just spare me the time and let him stay. The Hokage seemed thoughtful for a moment before he nodded. Very well. As you know, he asked my medics to do a test, after what had happened in the forest. Naruto hummed. On the outside he was calm and composed, but Sasuke saw it. The barely restrained curiosity and excitement glinting in his violet eyes. Yes, and your mother was a royal Uzumaki. A poor bee. It's Minato, who had the Senju bee, it seems. He was the son of Senju Minami, a kunoichi we thought dead. Minami was the daughter of my sensei. Naruto, you are the great-grandson of Senju Tobirama and thus, Hashirama-sama's great-nephew. Sasuke's eyes widened. He looked at the blonde. Naruto was Fortune. The Hokage had made him speechless, a feat not many had managed to accomplish. Not now, nor in their previous life. Naruto had always had a sharp tongue and he voiced his thoughts, sometimes even a bit carelessly. After what seemed to be eternity, Naruto got a grip of himself and nodded, looking at the Hokage pictures that lined the office wall. Did Oto-san know? The Sandaime shook his head. I doubt it. Both of your parents were orphans of the war. Kushina remembered her parents and her homeland, but Minato knew nothing. He didn't even know the names. It was Jiraiya, my student, who found Minato with a blonde man. We have to assume that man was Minato's father. With his dying breath, the man asked Jiraiya, after he found Jiraiya to be a shinobi of Konoha, to bring Minato to the village, to grow in his mother's home. That was all the man said. I only know this because Jiraiya told me. Nothing more, nothing less. I see, the blonde said. Thank you for telling me. The Sandaime sighed. Now that you know most of it, I see no reason to hold anything back. I'm sorry I had to lie to you. But they asked me to shield you from their enemies, especially Minato's, and it knew no other way. The least thing I could do, was to give your mother's name. Naruto sighed. I could be angry and I believe we all know a would have the right to be angry. The Sandaime nodded. For the first time since they entered, Sasuke saw worry and discomfort on the aged shinobi's features. Yes, ignorant. Naruto shook his head and the Sandaime fell silent. I'm not angry. I'm not happy how the village treated me, but the ignorance of others is not your fault, he said quietly. My parents asked you to protect me from their enemies and you did. I'm in Konoha still and alive. So that's something I should be grateful for, I suppose. Thank you for the understanding, Naruto. However, I have a request. What is it? The man asked. Let me use my clan names. Their symbols. I'm a shinobi now. Let the world know who I am. The Sandaime's eyes were wide. Naruto, you have to understand, carrying those names is dangerous. You are one of the 2 last Senjus and possibly the last Uzumaki. People might hunt you for your name. Sasuke huffed. Like some people might hunt me, for my name and my Sharingan. It's the same, and you didn't deny me my heritage, wealth and name. His eyes narrowed. If you deny Naruto's request, you deny him the things I have, and that would make you a hypocrite, Hokage-sama. The Hokage seemed taken aback by his words, then he gave him a sharp look. Sasuke was about to speak again, when Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. Sasuke, please. No need to be so harsh. Sasuke stole a sidelong glance at the blonde. It's the truth. There was a short stare down between the two of them, but before either of them could say anything more, the Hokage sighed. They looked at the man, as he nodded to Naruto. Request granted, Genin Uzumaki. For a moment, there was quiet and Sasuke could see the scowl that made its way to his brother's face. My apologies, it should Besenju Uzumaki no, I suppose. Kakashi liked being an Anbu. The hard, B missions helped him forget his failures in life. It helped him forget that almost every person he truly cared about was dead. And he liked being an Anbu, because that way, he could be close to Naruto. He could be close to Naruto and keep the promise he'd given himself, after figuring it out, who Naruto's parents were. Plus, being around Naruto was now synonymous to being near Sasuke, which was also good. He had failed to notice the shift in Itachi, which had ended up with the Uchiha K his clan. Perhaps, he could keep an eye on Sasuke and prevent the younger from going down a dark path. He owed that to Shisui. And Obito, too. So yes, Kakashi liked being in Anbu. Yet, here he stood, in front of the Sandaime Hokage, in the man's office. The man himself was gazing calmly at him, smoking his pipe. The Hokage was calmness personified, as if he hadn't just told Kakashi he was being kicked out of Anbu. Well, the man said retire from Anbu, but that was the same to Kakashi. But Hokage-sama. Kakashi tried protesting, but the Hokage raised a hand. I need you, as a Jonin-sensei, the Hokage said, taking a drag of his pipe. Kakashi couldn't help but glare. So you're kicking me out of Anbu, your best captain, so that I can go and babysit some spoiled brats. Amusement flashed in the man's eyes and Kakashi swore he would burn all of the old geezers Ika. It didn't matter that he thought of the book as sacred, and then grabbed Naruto. And if he grabbed Naruto, Sasuke would surely tag along, and become a missing nin. Spoiled brats. The man hummed. You have interesting concept of spoiled, Kakashi. Your students are orphans, after all. I thought you'd thank me, if you tutor Naruto and Sasuke. Kakashi froze, needing a moment to make sense of the Naruto and Sasuke. When he had found out about Naruto, he had tried adopting the little ball of sunshine, and hadn't stopped trying, until Naruto reached the age of 5. Then, being perceptive as he was, Naruto learned that Anbu were often around him, to keep the mean people away. After that particularly bad 6th birthday, the boy became even sharper. He showed signs of his parents' skills and intellect and Kakashi noticed sadly, that after that incident, he matured far too fast. But he knew of the Anbu following him and he cared for them. Sometimes, they would hold short conversations with Naruto and Naruto remembered. He remembered their favorite foods and their birthdays. He was smart enough not to ask for the names, but he asked for their birthdays and he would leave small gifts, some sweets or plants, sometimes particularly nice drawings as gifts. With those small gestures Naruto had soon become the favorite mission of every single Anbu operative. And if possible, with those small gestures, Kakashi grew to cherish Naruto even more. The blonde was his little brother, despite Naruto not knowing his name. But now, Nohei would be able to show himself to Naruto. To walk up to the blonde and hug him without his Anbu gear hiding his idini. And he could do the same to Sasuke. He could tell the Uchiha about Obito and Shisui and about the dreams and ideals of peace. Perhaps sharing the good memories would make sure Sasuke never fell into the darkness he hadn't seen in Itachi. So, will you take him on? The Sandaime asked after a long pause. Kakashi nodded and happily tossed his Anbu mask onto the desk. This was his chance at redemption. Hi, Hokage-sama. The man hummed, obviously noticing his sudden change of mind. Yamato will be back in a week from his mission. He will be your partner in teaching Naruto and Sasuke. Kakashi nodded. It was easy to work with Yamato and they were even friends, he supposed. Who's the third genin, Hokage-sama? The Sandaime looked down at 2 files, which Kakashi had a feeling were Naruto and Sasuke's. No one. You. Yamato and the 2 genin will be Team 13. Kakashi's single eye went wide with shock. Team 13 were usually the hopeless losers. The ones, who were even worse, than the dead last of a class. Team 13 was formed rarely and only when the genin involved had special abilities or Kekkei Genkai, which the village wanted to exploit. But, Hokage-sama. Neither of them are deadlists, yes. Ikno. The man see him off. However, they are both alone in a way, traumatized by their childhood and bystanders in the society, in a way. However, they bonded over that and I didn't think I have to explain to you, how close they are. In fact, perhaps you know more about them, than Ido. Indeed he did. He had been shocked all those years ago, when he heard the two refer to one another as brothers, but by now, it was as normal as the sun rising in the sky. Although, sometimes, their seriousness, formal and almost archaic way of speech did surprise him. Kakashi was sure that if Naruto's parents were here, they would have questioned if the blonde was truly their son. Neither of them were the archaic or formal type. Hey, Kushina-san despised formality, despite being a clan head herself. Heck, Minato-sensei hated it too, and that was saying something, since he'd been the Hokage. How had Thirkid ended up being so formal and composed, Kakashi would never understand. He nodded. Yes, I know them. But, what do you hope to achieve by this, Hokage-sama? The Sandaime hummed for a moment. Train them. Train them to be the best. Let them be the best individually. Let them be the best, the strongest tag team the nations had seen. Train them to be better than the Sannin. I know that between you and Yamato it's not an impossible request to make. If Kakashi weren't wearing his mask, his jaw would have been on the floor. To be better than the Sannin. Holy crap. The Sandaime wanted those two to be better than the Sannin. And how the hell were they meant to achieve that? Sure, him and Yamato were skilled, but teaching. A part of Kakashi was curious about the Sandaime's reasons. Why did the man want those two trained so toughly? He had to have reasons, other than the fact that as a Jinchuriki, Naruto could be the village's most dangerous trump card, or that Sasuke, with his powerful Sharingan, because Kakashi had felt the power behind those eyes, could be the village's only saving grace, if Naruto ever lost control. The man had to have reasons. But Kakashi didn't ask. He didn't ask, because the Sandaime had just given him, and Yamato, leave to train the boys the way they saw fit. The Sandaime had given him leave to give the boys all the skills and power they saw fit. And Kakashi would do just that. He would teach those children well and give them the power and skill they would need. Because the world of shinobi was dangerous and you needed skill and power to survive. And he would make sure those boys survived. If Kakashi had Azzy and things, and obviously headed, as their sensei, those two would grow gray and old. Gray and old, like his father, Obito, Rin, Minato-sensei and Kushina-san had no chance to be. Do you still accept, Kakashi? The old man asked, a note of challenge in his tone. Kakashi sallowed. But the Hokage trusted him. Trusted them to do it. And those were Naruto and Sasuke they were talking about. He owed this to both. Hi, Hokage-sama, he answered seriously, as he bowed. Being genin of the village meant getting a step closer to the goal. It meant they didn't have to hold back so much. It was time to reveal their true colors. So, they got new clothes as well. Sasuke grinned, as he looked at Naruto. You look good, Ototo. Naruto wore a mesh shirt with black shinobi pants and black open-toed sandals. He had a white, short-sleeved haori, like the one his father had worn. However, this one had different patterns. It had 6 black magatama around the collar and red swirl, wave-like pattern on the bottom. The right sleeve had the senjuvaja on it, while the left had the uzumaki swirl. Naruto's forehead protector now had black band and it was tightly secured around his forehead, the 2 long strands of his blonde hair wrapped in bandages. He had a simple silver pendant hanging from his neck, which formed the kanji for 9. And Naruto had jabbed him in the ribs to be subtle. The back of his haori had the moon and circle of the Otsutsuki clan in black outline. He also had a brown utility belt, which held his weapons and scrolls. Naruto hummed and mirrored his grin. You aren't bad yourself, Ni-sama. Sasuke wore a black shirt, its sleeves reaching his elbows, both sleeves having small red waituki sewed into them. Above it, he had a white, high-collared vest with the 6 magatama around the collar. The back of the vest also displayed the symbol of the Otsutsuki. He had black shinobi pants and dark blue sandals. His forehead protector had the standard dark blue cloth and it hung loosely around his neck. 2 strands of his hair, framing his face, were wrapped in bandages. He had blue paint under his eyes, the corners turned upwards. He'd also had a tanto hanging from his side, the rest of his weapons and scrolls were secured on the utility belt. HN, he grunted, as he nodded towards the window. I hope we'll be on the same team, otherwise I'll become a missing nin. Ni-sama. Naruto scolded him, with a half-hearted glare. They jumped out to speed trough the rooftops towards the academy. As they walked into the classroom side by side, clad in their new attires, Sasuke could feel the curious gazes of all their batchmates. His fangirls shrieked and swooned, but he ignored them. They sat in the usual spots and waited for Iruka to arrive. After a few minutes, Iruka arrived and asked the class to settle down. Predictably, no one heard him as everyone was chatting with someone, excited about the team placements. Sasuke's gaze skidded through the room and he did a quick count of those present. The numbers don't add up. Odd. Settle down. Iruka-sensei roared, using his big head jutsu, obviously at the end of his patience. As the Chunin moved, Sasuke noted the small stiffness in his movements. So he was still feeling that Mizuki gave him. Sasuke wished he could have broken the bastard's nose. Naruto had told him that Mizuki had badmouthed his parents and that was unforgivable in Sasuke's eyes. Uzumaki Kushina was, after all, his godmother. And years ago, when they'd met the chakra imprints, the Yondaime had made it clear that he was part of their family too. Silenced and a bit cowed, the class quieted down. Iruka nodded, pleased and cleared his throat. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate you for graduating. Secondly, I wish to tell you that now you are shinobi of Konoha and once you leave this classroom, you will be considered adults. Act accordingly. Your actions reflect on your team, on your village. And most importantly, your actions may mean the difference between life and death. I wish you luck on your journey, as shinobi. Sasuke saw a few unsure glances between friends, some whispered softly about things he couldn't catch, but nothing more. Now, on to team placements. I will name your teammates and your sensei in numerical order. Sasuke only half listened, bored out of his mind. Iruka went from Team 1 to Team 12 and be Therakudo. Neither him nor Naruto had been called out yet and he was begging to get worried that they indeed will have to become missing nin to get somewhere, if they wanted to stop Kaguya and Zetsu. Team 13 is, Iruka looked up, placing his paper on the desk, Uchiha Sasuke and Senju Uzumaki Naruto. Boys, your sensei is Hatake Kakashi. Good luck to everyone. Your Jonin instructors will come soon. Wait a second. Kiba growled, obviously pissed. He pointed at him, why are they just two? Every other team has 3 members. Iruka sighed, but gave the Inuzaka a pointed look. Indeed. But this was Hokage-sama's decision, Kiba. Sasuke and Naruto, as a team. If you have a problem, you may raise your concerns to Hokage-sama himself. Wait, sensei. Did you say Zenju? Ino asked, looking at him, then back at their teacher. I thought only Tsunade-sama remained of the Senju clan. Iruka nodded. Hi. I said Senju Uzumaki Naruto. But if you're a Senju, Naruto. Choji said, looking their way, why not use the name before? Naruto shrugged. My father was of the Senju and he asked Sandaime-sama to shield me from those who would seek to destroy what remained of the clan. Surely, you noticed that the only one who carries that name is Tsunade of the Sannin. That's because she's an accomplished kunoichi and they would not go after her. Hunting down a child is much easier. But if you are a Senju, you aren't an orphan. Shino said, creeping out Afu, as they heard him speak. Tsunade-sama, as your clan head, should be your guardian. Naruto nodded. True, Shino. However, Tsunade-hime is unaware of my heritage and Sandaime-sama couldn't track her, to tell her. He's still looking for her. She had left the village shortly before I was born. Iruka cleared his throat and the class looked at him. You should go and eat. Any questions you may have to Naruto may be asked over food or after the team meetings. I wish you luck. Have a good day. Good day, some murmured, as Iruka left. Sasuke stood from his seat, just as the door shut behind the scarred man and some eyes turned to him. He ignored it, looking at his brother, his hand working on opening the window. Are you coming, Ototo? Naruto flashed him a foxy grin. Lead the way, Ni-sama. And with that, they leapt out of the classroom. They walked back to the academy after a delicious few blows of ramen. Sasuke had never been addicted to a food before. Not now, nor in their previous life. But he had to admit that the ramen the Ichirakus Made was addictive. He could understand why Naruto called it the food of kami. Not that he would admit that to anyone, other than the blonde himself. Sasuke came to an abrupt halt, as he ran into his brother. Naruto had stopped, staring with wide, disbelieving eyes. Sasuke followed his line of sight and his own weaker sensory tingled at the familiar chakra. It was a man in his 20s, with distinctive silver, gravity-defying hair. One black eye studied them, the other was covered by the slanted headband. The lower half of his face was covered by dark blue cloth mask and he wore standard Konoha Jonin uniform. The man seemed a bit surprised, then he waved at him, his eye crinkling into an upside-down U. Sasuke supposed it meant he was smiling. Gods, this man was harder to read than himself and his stoic kin, as Naruto was fond of saying. What he wouldn't give for his brother's enhanced sensory now. It was totally unfair that the Senju Uzumaki could read people's emotions. True, his senses were more sensitive to negative emotions, but he could generally tell positive ones as well, as long as the person he was reading was close enough. Hello Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun. I was about to pick you up in the classroom, but this is even easier. Sasuke allowed a tiny upward quirk of his lips. The Anbu, specifically Inu and Tora, had grown on him too. Somewhere along the way, when he realized the two males cared for his baby brother, friend as much as he did, he started considering the two a part of their tiny family. The fact that Tora and Inu's chakra had a touch of Ashura's in his, might have also helped endear them, after he was over his anger. Inu-san, they greeted him, Naruto waving enthusiastically. Naruto started skipping over to the other and Sasuke shook his head at the antics. Naruto practically attached himself to the Jonin, muttering about missing him. Not that Sasuke blamed him too much. In the past weeks, neither Tora nor Inu had been among their watchers. Naruto's worry had become so unbearable, that once, Sasuke simply stopped Neko and asked her where the two others were. She'd laughed at their worry and told them they were doing other missions, but would be back soon, and then she left, promising to pass their worries and well wishes to the missing operatives. Sasuke rolled his eyes and pried his brother off of the silver-haired Sharingan user and gave the man a half-apologetic look. Excuse my brother, we've been a bit worried, when you and Tora hadn't turned up at the apartment for so long. It's quiet all right, the oldest said, ruffling their hair fondly. Sasuke gave the man a sharp look, but his answer was just another weird, eye smile. Now, let us settle on an nearby training ground for the introductions, shall we? Kakashi had not expected to be in a chokehold, courtesy of an enthusiastic Naruto, the moment he met his new students. But it was nice to know the blonde cared for him. Kakashi glanced at the memorial stone and smiled under his mask. Minato-sensei, Kushina-san, Obito. Can you see us now? I swear, I will take care of them, he woved, as he sat down, his back against a tree. Kakashi studied the two, as they walked next to each other. Naruto was literally radiating excitement and happiness, however, he tried to remain composed and kept up with Sasuke. Sasuke was much calmer, but the earlier quirk of his lips told Kakashi that the Uchiha was just as pleased to see him as Naruto. He briefly wondered, when had he figuratively adopted the two into his tiny family, but he couldn't pinpoint a moment in time. The boy's choice of clothing was also a surprise. Naruto's briefly reminded Kakashi of his sensei, while Sasuke's was something that perhaps Shisui would have worn. He caught the patterns too. Interesting choice. He wondered what the Magatama and the moon circle sign on their backs was supposed to symbolize. And since when did Sasuke have paint under his eyes? The boys settled down and Kakashi cleared his throat. So, let's start with introductions. I know a lot about you too, having practically watched you grow up, but that doesn't mean I know everything. Let's see if you can say something new. He gave them an eye smile. But, since I haven't even properly introduced myself, I will start. The boys glanced at each other and then nodded at him to continue. So, I'm Hatake Kakashi, former student of the Yondaime Hokage. Formerly an Anbu captain, now you're Jonin sensei, if you prove yourself worthy. I like salt broiled sori and eggplant mixed miso soup, spending time with my nin dogs and reading. It is like fried foods or sweets and those who leave their teammates behind. My dreams for the future. It's to make you two strong and make sure you survive. The boys nodded, showing that they'd listened. He'd seen Naruto's eyes glimmer when he mentioned his sensei. Kakashi-san. Yes, Naruto. If you were taught by Oto-san, he paused for a second. Did you meet my mother too? Kakashi blinked. Naruto knew of his parents. The Sandaime hadn't mentioned that, but now that conversation about serious training made more sense. Naruto knew of his heritage and the Sandaime expected it to be known by others, sooner rather than later. Kakashi chuckled, the many fond memories of the redhead coming back. I did. I can tell you about them some other time, if you like. But, how do you know about your heritage? The boys shared a look. Sasuke nodded and the blonde turned back to him. I tried to ruin the seal once. Kakashi's bee ran the stupid village done, to nearly break someone like Naruto. They left chakra imprints in the seal, so we met them, as a managed to drag Sasuke into my mind, too. It was then, that I found out Naruto's mother was my godmother. Sasuke injected. Kakashi blinked. Ha, that's new. But not all that surprising. Kushina-san had been close to your mother. Actually, your parents had been close. Best friends, even, I could say. The boys smiled and Kakashi nodded at Naruto. But, on with the introductions, please. Naruto grinned. I'm Senju Uzumaki Naruto. I like nature and gardening, spending time with Sasuke, training, Fuinjutsu is my favorite and ramen. I don't like people who can't make the difference between Biju and Jinchuriki, as well as people who judge without knowing all the facts. Oh, and I really dislike those who hurt my precious people. My dream for the future is to become Hokage and bring peace to the world, not necessarily in that order. Kakashi hummed. Good. Sasuke, please. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I like meditating, reading, spending time with Naruto and training, especially Kenjutsu. My favorite foods are ramen and tomatoes. I dislike people who can't make the difference between Biju and Jinchuriki. I also dislike sweets, traitors and those who harm my precious people. My dream is to find a certain man, help Naruto become Hokage and bring peace to the world, not necessarily in that order. The scarecrow nodded, studying the two boys. They'd surely grown up in an interesting way. They were so similar, yet different in other things, that they could pass for brothers. But, considering their way of address, it was nothing new. A random passerby, who ignored the different looks, surely would call them brothers. Well, thank you for sharing all this. You are free for the rest of the day. Tomorrow, meet me here, at 7 in the morning. I want to see your skills. Oh, and don't eat breakfast. The boys stood up and muttered their parting words, before leaping into the trees and leaving. Kakashi watched them with ever-growing curiosity. Those two were indeed close. But were they close enough? If the Hokage really wanted him to make a tag team out of these kids, then they had to be closer than average teammates, as they had no third member to fall back on, if everything went south. They seemed like brothers, but even brothers could fight, like enemies, if they thought something was theirs and the other should not have it. For some reason, Kakashi feared Sasuke might fall into that to try and turn against Naruto, if he saw a better opportunity. The way the Uchiha had mentioned finding Itachi, his tone had been cold and set Kakashi on the edge. Well, we'll just have to see how they perform tomorrow, he thought with a shrug. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.